I was an only child, and when I was 7, my mum passed of cancer. And so she'd been sick for a while, so she really wasn't present in my life as a mother for a good couple of years. And I was actually sent away by my dad. You know, you're a kid, you don't know what's happening when you're 6 or 7. And when I came back, he took me into one of the rooms in the house and sort of got down on one knee so he could be eye level. He was always very considerate of that and said, you know, I can't remember his exact words, but basically your mum's not here anymore. And I don't know to this day to what degree I've actually been able to process that. You can't ask a 7-year-old to understand what death means, and certainly of this quintessential security blanket called your mother. So that was that. And then, so that made my dad and I very close. And I'm blessed that I had a very unconditionally loving dad. And he did the best he could, given he still had to go to work. We weren't wealthy. And then one day he went to work when I was 17. He worked on what we call the ferries, or the boats that go between England and Belgium and in England and France. And the boat capsized, and about 300 to 400 people died.
Oh my God.
And he was sadly one of them. So it was our equivalent of any major disaster where it was all over the news for days, where they're pulling bodies out of the English Channel. And of course, we're sitting there hoping that all the people coming out with blankets, that I see my dad, and suffice to say, he wasn't one of them. So that was probably, I'd say that was the hardest thing I've ever been through, and in ways that I still couldn't even process at the time. Again, 17, you know, you're so young. But I can remember standing in my bedroom. And again, that mum's died, dad's gone. I did have a stepmother, but, you know, the relationship, she was a very nice lady, but it's not like my biological parents. And I can remember viscerally having what I consider the worst experience a human being can have, which is the feeling of complete isolation. And I think, you know, and as my work has evolved, I've realized that what we're up against is the belief that we're separate. And if we think we're separate as a human being, as any sort of pack animal, it's the worst feeling, because you want to belong, you know, which we could say is love or family and community. But this was visceral, meaning it was physical. It wasn't like I could argue, no, but I got a great brother, even if he's a dick. You know, it's like we're close. There was no one. There was just no one. And so I think that's what led me to have so much compassion for people, is because I had the actual experience of separation, which I think is what people are going through when they're suffering. They might have parents, they might have siblings, they might have loved ones or spouses. But if we feel separate, then it's a desperate feeling. So yeah, so that was part of my upbringing, which I think, you know, again, look, what I just said to Mike, what happened. It couldn't happen any other way because it didn't. Doesn't mean it's ideal. And some people misunderstand that quote. I just want to be clear. I'm not saying that what people went through is ideal. People go through awful things, from child abuse to sexual abuse. I'm not saying what happened is great. I'm saying it happened. And if you keep processing it and you don't let go of it, then you're still suffering, even though it might be years after.
Yeah.
So what happened is that's what happened. And apparently that was my destiny. And it allowed me to become, as I said, loving, compassionate, patient, understanding with people. I wouldn't wish it upon anyone, but clearly that was what was my karma. So
yeah. I feel like some people take that experience, they use it and they get into trouble. Some people take that and they become the best version of themselves.
I think it's one of the most, you know, the greatest compliments I got when I went to college in the UK at first year at university. I didn't know anyone, and you obviously start to make friends. And this one guy, he was a very sweet guy, very sensitive, and he came up to me, and after we got to know each other and some people had heard my story, college had something like 15,000 students. And he said, you know, if we were to line up every student and you had to pick the kid whose parents had died, you would have been the last one I'd pick, because you just seem so vital and full of life, which to me at the time was very, you know, it was a compliment. To what degree at that age I was also hiding a little bit, because, you know, I was conscious of it. I don't know, but it was still a compliment.